Filmmaker Kane Parsons is the director of the 2026 feature film Backrooms, which is based on the YouTube series that he began in 2022, completing his debut feature at the astonishing age of 20. Parsons is being hailed as something of a wunderkind, and his work thus far seems to bear this out. But it's important to note that the Backrooms phenomenon and its liminal aesthetic is not the result of one artist's vision. Backrooms the movie is the latest product of a decade-long online conversation involving thousands of individuals, the vast majority of them completely anonymous. Although the use of uninhabited man-made spaces had been used in painting and film for many years to convey a sense of unease and discomfort, the aesthetic appeal of what would come to be known as liminal spaces would gain popularity in the 2010s with the rise of dead malls. Urban exploration of neglected and abandoned commercial and industrial spaces by photographers like Henk van Rensburgen and filmmakers like Dan Bell would become highly influential. On April 21st, 2018, an anonymous 4chan user posted this uncredited photo to a message board dedicated to cursed images. On May 12th, 2019, an anonymous 4chan user reposted the photograph and asked others to, quote, post disquieting images that feel off, unquote. The post quickly accumulated hundreds of responses, one of them from another anonymous user who wrote a brief description of what the photograph depicted. If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. Thus the Backrooms was born. An urban legend that would be embellished by countless contributing imaginations, collective storytelling, globalized and accelerated by the World Wide Web, where ancient folk tales and songs would take many generations to take form. It's only taken a few years for Backrooms lore to expand into multiple canons, including the work of Kane Parsons, who would utilize the found footage form to flesh out the Backrooms for YouTube and now A24. The collision of anonymous collective authorship with the idea of the individual genius demonstrates the stark contrast between these two opposing views of art and creativity. We're all quite familiar with the concept of the auteur, the venerated genius. It's one of the hallmarks of modernity, and it's been with us for at least as far back as Michelangelo, who in 1499 carved his name into Mary's sash on his Pieta sculpture. Before the Renaissance, however, the medieval sculptor and painter was less concerned with credit. Not that pride didn't exist, nor jealousy, or some sense of competition among artists, but, by all accounts, the medieval mindset didn't come close to our current obsession with individual accolades, the thirst for validation, oftentimes for not even being creative in any respect at all. For most of the Middle Ages, art was a form of service to God, church, or a patron, and not necessarily a vehicle for fame or self-expression. Chartres Cathedral, one of the greatest examples of Gothic architecture, was built by people who thought this way.
Now this has been standing here for centuries. The premier work of man, perhaps, in the whole Western world. And it's without a signature.
These are the words of Orson Welles, still considered one of the giants of cinema. At the age of 23, he was signed to RKO Pictures, and at the age of 24, he began work on Citizen Kane. Not as young as Kane Parsons, but close. Over 30 years later, Welles marvels at the anonymous accomplishment that is Chartres.
You know, it might be just this one anonymous glory. Of all things, this rich stone forest, this epic chant, this gaiety, this grand choiring shout of affirmation, which we choose, when all our cities are dust, to stand intact, to mark where we have been, to testify to what we had it in us to accomplish.
We generally consider art in all its forms as some sort of special activity separate from all other aspects of daily life. Medieval society did not make that distinction. This is true of all pre-modern civilizations throughout the world. The Japanese tea ceremony requires a level of attention and care that is essentially artistic, but applies that sense of discipline to an activity that the modern world demeans as mundane and unworthy of that much focus. Why not just throw a tea bag in some hot water and let it steep while you look at your phone? Angine de Poitrine is a French-Canadian rock duo that maintain their anonymity behind the masked pseudonyms Kin and Klek. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Anonymity is a necessary ingredient in their unique aesthetic, which, to me, has many other elements that feel medieval. Klek's head looks like the massive visored helmet of a knight.
None shall pass. What? None shall pass.
And his polka dot tunic complements this noble vibe. Looking like a jester or a traveling acrobat, Kin sports headgear that is part carnival mask, part plague doctor, and part Clockwork Orange. Looking like the knights of yin and yang, Angine de Poitrine's music also smacks of the Middle Ages. Their microtonal melodies harken back to a time before European musicians and composers adopted equal temperament, the 12-tone tuning system that we still use today. This gives much of Angine de Poitrine's music a strangely medieval flavor, both European and Islamic. This aesthetic matches the anonymous approach. Of course, it isn't quite the same as medieval artisans contributing their unsigned handiwork to the construction of a Gothic cathedral. I mean, for one thing, the performing arts usually involves an audience responding in real time. And such modern considerations as mass production and mass media have created an environment where anonymity and celebrity can coexist. For example, in the guerrilla artwork of Banksy and the novels of Elena Ferrante. Choosing anonymity, the artist takes a step towards the dissolution of the ego in recognition of something greater. Andrei Tarkovsky's film, Andrei Rublev, depicts the life of Russia's greatest painter of medieval icons. After numerous setbacks, including the destruction of his work, Rublev has a conversation with the ghost of his dead mentor and explains how he plans to quit working.
Знаешь, я писать больше никогда не буду.
Почему?
Не нужно это никому, вот и все.
Подумаешь, иконостас сожгли. Да меня знаешь, сколько пожгли? В Пскове, в Новгороде, в Галиче. Великий грех на себя берешь.
Andrei Rublev's pride, his ego, is standing in the way of his duty, his dharma, and his mentor is trying to explain to Andrei how he must stay on task and disregard anything that may or may not happen to his work. This understanding is in alignment with the great Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita. When the warrior Arjuna refuses to fulfill his duty, Krishna explains how he must work, but not be entitled to the fruits of work. Let not the fruit of action be your motive, nor let your attachment to be inaction. The film ends with a montage of Andrei's actual work, damaged, decaying, but now preserved in print, on film, and digitally, for as long as printed reproductions, celluloid, and the electrical grid hold up. Nothing lasts forever. As Orson Welles points out so eloquently,
our works in stone, in paint, in print are spared, some of them for a few decades or a millennium or two, but everything must finally fall in war or wear away into the ultimate and universal ash.
In the Navajo, Pueblo, and Tibetan traditions, the art of sand painting is still practiced. The process is ritualistic and not meant to create a permanent artifact. The painting is destroyed at the end of the ritual, in recognition of the impermanence of material things. So, of course, there's nothing to sign. These thoughts usually enter my mind whenever I take it upon myself to do another one of these video essays, with views that drop dramatically after the first day or so, on a channel that doesn't seem to be going anywhere, on a platform that is poised to be rid of most of us. Why bother?
Our songs will all be silenced. But what of it? Go on singing.
As always, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And have a great day.